Welcome back to another fresh episode of the Daddio Show! Come on now. We're back. This is Harding Ison-Bowman. I'm coming to you from partnerwithgreatness.com, a youth development platform aimed at youth ages 14 to 24, specifically young men. This is a great opportunity. You guys are tuning in on a weekly mentoring session. See, a lot of folks don't have that stable mentor, maybe that stable father figure in their lives that can speak some truth and some honesty and some wisdom. And so this is a virtual mentoring session with that mentor you never had. I'm your boy HIB, and I'm joined on full-length episodes of this Daddio Show podcast series, joined by some special guest interviews that will sit to my right or to my left, and we'll chop it up with those local daddios and see what's going on that's working well in their world and see what they can recommend to us to deal with the problems that we're currently facing in this crazy society we're living in. So today I want to talk to you about the robot economy. All right. So a lot of times I start my soft skills training at the alternative school where I work as a public educator with this idea of what are you going to do to keep your job or keep your future source of livelihood that you're planning on doing through high school or after high school. What are you going to do to keep that from being replaced by a robot? And so what do I mean by that? Let's dive right in. Okay, so I've been reading this book, The Boy Crisis by Dr. Warren Farrell, and co-written by John Gray. That's the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So very interesting read so far. I'm only 10 or 20 pages into it. But it's talking about how, and I see this tendency a lot. It seems like, the way young men are wired, all we want to do is, run, jump, play, work with our hands, and do kind of the physical stuff, learn by doing, hands-on learning. It's kind of a hot button topic in education right now. Oh, hands-on learning. All right. So, and then when you hang around education long enough and you start to really look at, some of the cases that have a lot of the right tendencies, a lot of the right skills and aptitudes, but they just don't quite pan out in most educational settings. I've heard quite a few that sound like this. Oh yeah, okay. So you've got young Blake. Let's say, make up a name here. You got young Blake in your program now. Well, I'm a teacher from another school in the district. I used to have that kid in class, and here's what I've noticed. See if we can compare notes here. Blake would really be brightened up and even take a leadership role and be active and full of energy when we were doing something hands-on. Let's say it's like a vocational job training, workforce training type of program, which I hope your district is blessed enough to have something like that. They're fantastic. So he would be doing great and even take a leadership role as long as we were doing something with our hands and we were in shop mode and we were building and cranking on wrenches and putting stuff together. But as soon as we would do like the conceptual side of things and have to do some reading and writing, or like explain how we figured things out and do things that were like discussion, listening and learning based with paper and pencil, or do something that was more intellectual in nature rather than physical, young Blake would just check out. He would just shut down, maybe put his head down on the desk. He would not participate. He'd just sort of refuse or check out or get this glazed look in his eyes and become bored looking and become unsuccessful. So just night and day, going from successful behaviors to unsuccessful when you take the physical learning experience out of the equation. All of a sudden, I'm not playing anymore. I'm not going to attempt this, and I'm just going to shut down on you. So there's some heartbreaking problems with that situation. So let's go back to this idea of the robot economy. Okay, I'm sure maybe some of you have heard this idea that, if you pull up to a McDonald's 5 years, 10 years in the future, you may be talking through the little drive-through camera interface with somebody in a call center out in Iowa, and meanwhile inside the restaurant there's a bunch of robot arms like loading up your sandwich and putting your sandwich together, and nobody is in there doing the work. It's just like a remote pit stop sort of robot warehouse of McDonald's food, and there's no human employees in there anymore. Maybe I'm exaggerating, or maybe I got the concept a little off, but you get the idea. You know, automation, robot technology, artificial intelligence, you know, it's outsourcing of jobs that used to be, you know, human jobs will now be taken over by robots. And so what can you do to help provide training, adequate training, and prepare your loved one, your son, or whoever the young man in your life is that you care about? How can you help him prepare? I'm gonna touch on a couple things from the Boy Crisis book here that I've read so far. So one thing I want to touch on is this idea of what he calls the death profession bonus. So what is the death profession bonus? He says it's basically the concept that jobs, if you take a bunch of jobs that require a low level of education, low level of training or education, formal education, the ones that require more risk of physical harm will pay better, right? In exchange for this death profession bonus, millions of dads with less education risk their lives to give their children options they don't have. So some examples might be crab fishing in Alaska, like on the show Deadliest Catch, working on an oil rig in a coal mine, pilot of a small plane dropping pesticides, a roofer, a construction worker. And again, you know, vocational training is awesome, nothing against those jobs, but you have to think to yourself, a lot of those things are only paying what they're paying because they're dangerous. So kind of two pitfalls to watch out for there, you know, like, is your job likely to be replaced by a robot, or is your job likely to cause such a high risk of physical harm that maybe the payoff isn't worth it? You know, like, sure, you're paying the bills and paying for shin guards and soccer cleats and stuff like that for your kids, but it'd be awesome to not have the risk of death hanging over your head all the time, or a serious injury. Ain't nobody got time to fall off a roof and, you know, have a broken rib and stuff. So those are two kind of pitfalls that we need to watch out for as we evolve and kind of grow into the new modern economy, to where we can safely and securely provide a growing income with options and mobility, to be able to provide for our families in as safe of a fashion as possible. Here's a statistic he talks about. The challenge for your son's grandpa was grandpa's job going nowhere. The challenge for your son is his job going elsewhere. So we're talking about jobs being shipped overseas. That's another aspect to it, in addition to the things we've already mentioned. Here's something here. Half the 6.5 million U.S. jobs lost since the 2009 recession were in manufacturing and construction. In contrast, personal care and home health aides are projected to be the fastest growing occupations, and women are predicted to fill the majority of these new jobs. So it's kind of a slant there, showing maybe the disadvantage in the economy for young men versus young women. And he goes on to say, in addition to outsourcing, something else has changed since Grandpa's day. If Grandpa wasn't educated, he probably supported his family with his muscle. But your son will enter an economy that has made a transition from muscle to mental, or from muscle to microchip. All right, so let's talk some real talk. Yeah. So what are some things you can do about this? So let's recap the problems here. So your son, traditionally, you know, young men would have traditionally commanded a higher income by risking more physical harm, or just by using brawn instead of brain, using muscle instead of mental, or muscle instead of microchip. So now, excuse me. some of those vocational style jobs or those labor style jobs might be in danger of not being stable. You know, they're not recession proof. The jobs could be outsourced overseas or taken over by computers and robots and stuff. Excuse me. So, what are the skills that are worth learning in today's world, and what are some of the basic first stepping stones towards helping your son go ahead and begin to develop the mental habits and the skills, the soft skills to be able to achieve those things. All right, so I think here's a short list of the skills that are worth developing today. The ability to problem solve, to creatively and analytically, like to creatively brainstorm and to analyze and break down a problem into its parts and recognize the difference between different parts of a problem and be able to break it down and put it back together, you know, and say, here's the whole view of the problem, here's the view of its little parts, and here's a solution to that problem that you can put into play. So I'm the one thinking of solutions to problems. So being a problem solver, excuse me. Also, you can do that solo or you can do that in groups. So the ability to communicate well with others, work and relate well with others. So there's kind of like some communication skills and some emotional skills there, and the ability to work well in a team. To contribute effectively to a team and to value other members of a team and not rub them the wrong way. So creative problem solving, analytical and critical thinking skills, communication, emotional intelligence, and teamwork. So that's how you robot economy proof your young person, your son. So I think the beginning stepping stones to the pathway to achieve those things, because here's the thing about those, you know, they're not necessarily sexy or fun or immediately rewarding, right? Like, you know, you teach your son to you know, play with blocks, and he can immediately stack some blocks and build something cool. It's hands-on, immediate gratification. He gets to see what he did, the result of his effort, right off the bat, and everybody's happy. Yay! Then you can crush the block tower together, and you know, destruction mode and testosterone, and that's fun too. Awesome. So doesn't require a lot of patience. It's immediate gratification. So my point I'm getting to is the 5 or so things I mentioned that your son needs to have in this robot driven economy coming up, y'all, that we're going to be living in. Those things are not easy to learn at first. You know, you got to practice them lifelong, and you got to practice them and start learning them early. So it's delayed gratification as opposed to instant gratification, right? So what I mean by that is you don't get the payoff very quickly after the first attempts of practicing the new skill. So, you know, if I want to learn how to, you know, communicate effectively with like females in a group setting where we're brainstorming and problem solving together, there's some things that might go wrong there. I might accidentally rub somebody the wrong way, and she's mad at me, and I have to figure out what was going on with my body language or my eye contact or my tone of voice or the words I chose. You know, communication is complicated, you know, and there's a lot of ways to screw it up and to do damage and to offend people and to hurt the relationships that you're going to need to be successful. So there's a learning curve there. It's not easy, you know, it's not intuitive for a lot of people. Brainstorming, critical thinking, reading and writing, you know, statistics are showing consistently that, you know, boys are behind girls in education and reading and writing skills, you know, so that those literary parts of the brain with communication, reading and writing, speaking and listening, where dudes are not necessarily typically gifted in those areas. It's more rare for a guy to be intelligent in those areas. So it's not easy to do. And what you have to do, the foundational aptitude behind, you know, achieving these delayed gratification skills is to practice delayed gratification. So, you know, if you're a dad what you want to do is you want to leverage the relationship you have and the joy that your son experiences in playing with you and having quality dad time and fun time, specifically roughhouse time. And I'll get into this more in another episode about the rough and tumble play research that's out there. It's really interesting. Um, especially when it comes to, like, let's wrestle time. Let's destroy each other on the couch and do, suplex each other and body slam each other and all that stuff, and have a good old rough time. You know as well as I do, if you've ever seen some kids play with their dads, that is just like choice activity there, bro. They love it. They can't get enough of it. You can just wear them out, just wrestling to death. So when you have that, relationship built on the shared fun and shared roughhousing together, and there's other ways to do it, I'm sure, but that's a great kind of shining example. Then you're able to say, all right. That was fun, little Timmy, and I'd love to do that more with you here in about 2 hours. But right now, the most important thing is we kind of tone it on down and ease into a more focused state of mind here so you can get your homework done. And it's not just about the homework, but it's about doing something where you got to take care of your business so you can play later. So we can't just play all the time, roughhouse all the time. We got to be willing to disappoint the kid temporarily and put that play, that pleasure on pause so that they can learn to say, like, okay, I got to take care of business, and then I can get what I want. Then I can go back to having fun. And it doesn't work if I just shut down and say, I don't feel like doing this anymore. Remember the story of young Blake in the wood shop class or whatever? All he wants to do is play and use his hands. And if we start talking about communication and problem solving and reading and writing, he just doesn't want to play anymore. Well, don't let your son develop that habit early on. Teach them when they're young. You handle your business first. You work hard so you can play hard. So delayed gratification, and just teaching them to trust that, good things that are promised come true. Be consistent on your word. So teach delayed gratification, and that is the mental building block to unlock all these communication skills, teamwork skills, social and emotional intelligence skills. It's a big deal, man. The future of your son depends on it. So hope you've enjoyed and gotten a lot of value out of this episode. Thanks for joining us here on the Daddio Show podcast series. We'll be back with more interview-style, full-length episodes soon. Thanks for joining us. Visit partnerwithgreatness.com for more awesome resources there, some blog and free ebook and things like that. We're going to take this thing big in 2020. I'm excited for you all to be joining us. Until next time, young champions, I believe in you.